goeth forth. Zechariah is being given this vision. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah that goeth forth. An ephah is a big old basket, right? It's just a big old basket. He said, moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead. And I always find it very interesting that when there is this movement of the UN, what I think is the world empire from someplace, you got to have lead involved. And why would you need lead? To protect you from radiation. All right, but anyway, it's a talent of lead that is a cover over this basket. And this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. This is a wicked woman. And that's talking about the end times, where we have the whole world is kind of together with, not only is it a political but a religious structure, kind of like Islam. And so anyway, there's this woman in the basket, and there's a cover of lead, and then it says, then I said to the angel, did I skip something? Yeah. And this is wickedness, and he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof, and he lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came two women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork. A stork is always a harbinger of evil in the Bible. And they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. And then he said to the angel that talked with me, whether do these bear the ephah? And he said unto me, to build it a house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. All right. So it just makes sense, since the whole world's problems started with the disobedience of the whole world at Babylon, and then that they were spread out. It just kind of makes sense that things are going to come back to Babylon, and that hasn't really happened yet. So this is one of the things where it makes me think, well, there's probably some time, but I am always interested in whatever kind of development is going on in Iraq. I'm always interested in seeing something going on there, because when we start to see a real city being developed there in Babylon, not like what is there now, but when we see some real development there, like what we see in the city of Dubai, we're in a matter of a couple of years, all of a sudden there's huge buildings out in the desert, and it doesn't take very long for this to happen. But if that ever starts to happen, you're just going to be seeing me frothing at the mouth, because I'm going, oh my gosh, the time is getting close. So anyway, back to our little timeline. All right, so we're going to be talking about Malachi today, all right? And the reason that I was interested in this, because as I was studying Nehemiah, I learned that there was a period of time after Nehemiah had come back and built the walls that he went back to, well, ultimately it was Babylon. It's where he went back to. All right? He went back to Babylon and left. He left for 12 years. He was gone. I think it was for 12 years. He was gone from Jerusalem. And so when he was gone, things kind of fell apart. But God never leaves Jerusalem. God never leaves Israel without prophets. And apparently during this period of time when Nehemiah was gone, that's when Malachi had his ministry. And so I thought, well, and it makes sense, because we know that what is that period of time when God doesn't speak in Scripture? How long is that period of time? 400 years. About 400 years. So let's think here for a moment, all right? So Nehemiah had been there, and you got to help me with these dates, because I didn't quite get it all the way down, but I didn't remember it entirely, but I think he talks about the 37th year of Artaxerxes. Now, what is really interesting is Nehemiah was given, remember, he was the one that was sad before the king. And we were told what year that was. Do you remember what year it was that Nehemiah was sad before the king?
20th year.
The 20th year of Artaxerxes' reign, which started in 465 and went from 465 to 464. And so the 20th year of his reign would be from 445 to 444 BC. And then Nehemiah goes back and he spends some, 17 years being the governor of Jerusalem. And then he goes back. And so we're like, you add about 20 years from 444 is when he went back, and now we got about 20 years, so it's about 422, and then he goes back to Babylon for about 12 years. Now we're about 410, and so when Nehemiah finally does come back to Jerusalem, I mean, he finds things have fallen apart. All right, he finds that the people have fallen away from the Lord, because you know what? That's what we do. We always have to fight this tendency we have to stray. we are like sheep that stray. We need to always be brought back, and so God has prophets that do this. And so I learned some things about Nehemiah that I didn't know before, and one was that he's kind of scary, and he chased people out of the compound. He pulled their hair, and this guy was, he was fierce. I always thought that the guy I would be most afraid of in heaven would be Paul, but I'm thinking Nehemiah is going to be he'll be a fun one to talk with, all right? So anyway, all right, so let's figure out if we're talking about this time period where we're dealing with Nehemiah and Malachi, where would we be? Right here. So if we're dealing with this time period, we're talking about, how many of you consider yourselves historians? Yes, you all do. And so we're talking about this period here, about 516 BC. This is about a 100-year period, all right? And now with the magic of PowerPoint, I'm going to expand this. Ready? So about 516 to about 432, somewhere down here for this time. Because remember, he returns to Persia for about 12 years, so it's about 420, I guess, is when this period when Nehemiah is gone that they think that Malachi was teaching during this time. All right, so there's our period of time. And of course, there's other great prophets. We have the story of Esther right here. Esther was married to Xerxes, and Artaxerxes was his kid, and Artaxerxes, Esther's kid. Was Artaxerxes Esther's kid? No. He was what?
Queen Vashti.
Vashti's kid. Oh, wasn't Vashti something? Wasn't she something? Vashti. Remember the story of Vashti? Yeah. She was an independent. She was an independent woman.
She was right.
She was right.
She refused to do what she was supposed to. They told her to do.
What? Well, she was
right.
She was right to refuse it.
Yeah.
Karen spoke with a woman at church. Where was it that you spoke with that woman who was from Afghanistan?
Payless.
At Payless, of course.
Some people's church.
I had given her some money. I said, go buy yourself something from me. Yeah, but can you relate that story? Can you quickly relate that story?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, we're still laughing. That was such a lie, the other thing you said. No, it was very interesting. Oh gosh, how did it, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember how this started. We were talking about the color of the shoes, and she asked me if I was French. And I said no, but I couldn't place her accent. So I said, are you? Somehow the way she said it made me think that she was. And she said, no, she was from Afghanistan. And so I asked her how long she had been here, and she said she came in 1990. And then she talked about, I said, I bet you are so grateful that you are here. And she said yes, and she was just wearing normal, modest, but like normal clothes she could have worn to church today. And she said that this is what they used to be able to wear in Afghanistan in 1990. And then now everything is just clamped down on them. They're not educating the women. They're not letting them even out of the house. She talked about the fact that she used to teach math and social studies. And then she explained that the reason she left, and this was the part I found so interesting, was that in 1990 when soldiers were coming from Russia, and they would conscript the young boys who were in 6th grade, the elementary school boys, conscript them, take them back to Russia. This is in 1990. And then they enforced them to be in their armies. And so she fled to protect her brother, who was in 6th grade at that time, and that he was significantly younger than she was. And so she left.
Okay. The reason I just thought of it is, here is a woman, and we're talking 20 years ago. This was a different country, Afghanistan, than it is now. When the Taliban has taken over and the Muslim Brotherhood has taken over, they clamp down. Women don't have a place. And what this woman was very concerned about was that she says this was 1990. This is after the fall. This is after the walls have come down in Russia, and Russia is still a player. And communism